Hi, my name is Philip Gill. I'm the CTO at Smartbox. Smartbox is the number one gift experience provider in Europe.
Phil Gill, you are very welcome to Cut the Onion. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be had. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, thank you for the invitation.
of course, we're so happy to have you here, and we're so happy to see that you've brought the first dog to our podcast episode in the background. Albie, shout out to Albie, special
Albie's
guest.
there. Albie has just woken up, so you might actually see him sleepily go back to his bed now. So yeah, yeah, he might come in with some rough opinions every now and again, but uh,
That
but
is exactly what this series was missing. That's exactly what we needed.
I was listening to some episodes. I was like going, what's missing here is some you need some canine attitude. Yeah, so there you go. He's in the background there with a nice grumpy face on him. So
We could call it Woof the Onion instead.
I
Woof the
think
Onion.
so. Yeah. Well, let's workshop that one a little bit. Yeah.
Some creative brainstorming. Okay, well, everyone, welcome to Cut the Onion. This is our mini series where we peel back the layers of what it really means to be a chief technology officer. In this series, we're getting to the core of tech roles that can oftentimes be misunderstood. We're going to be exploring the stories of those working in tech across a multitude of different industries, bringing you some honest takes, trends, and tips for moving forward. And more importantly, peeling away some of those common misconceptions that come when people think of a CTO. And joining me today, I'm so happy to have you here, Philip Gill, CTO at Smartbox. Phil, kicking us off with talking us through a typical day in your life as CTO at Smartbox.
There is actually no typical day, especially seen as in the post-COVID world.
Mm,
Like Smartbox, like a lot of companies, like we operate in a hybrid model. And hybrid means, for us anyway, means 2 days a week working in the office in the city centre here in Dublin, and 3 days working remotely. So
mm,
that kind of forces you to kind of structure your week in a really different way than what would have been the case before before COVID. So at the
mm,
start of the week, I would say like it's very much about kickoffs. It's about connecting with my fellow ELT members, like just making sure that everybody is aligned in terms of what the kind of strategic focus is, if there's any particular people activities or initiatives which need to be followed up on for the
mm,
given week, but very much about aligning on strategy and ensuring that everybody's basically on the same page at that level.
mm,
And then it goes into like a meeting with my directs, and again it's the same thing. We reflect on very briefly what happened on the week before, and then very quickly we move forward into like what is it that's happening. From a business point of view, I'm able to relay like where we should be in terms of strategy, and the
mm,
guys give updates in terms of where we are across various different initiatives. Like typically, like your week really crests on a Wednesday evening, and maybe and that sustains itself through to around Thursday.
yeah.
And like it's really just checking in with people, making sure they have what they need in order to get what they have on their plate for that particular week. Like I always kind of try to divide work between what is like our planned work. So stuff like we're working with our product teams, we're working with various different members of the business to really kind of evolve our product and evolve our systems in order to match what our customer needs. But then there's the operational side of things as well. Like in Smartbox, like I like to call it like nose to tail, like everything from product product conception right
Mm,
through to marketing, right through to manufacturing, sales, post sales, and all our kind of financial processes and like everything that happens in between.
mm.
There is a piece of Smartbox tech which is supporting and enabling those business processes to function and to fire. I suppose two kind of flows of work. You have your planned work and then you have your operational stuff, and there's always a battle between finding balance between where we should be spending our time.
Yeah, that's lovely. And it seems like I love hearing that you're pretty much in every crevice of the business at all times. And it's just circulating across each one of those and making sure that everything's okay and checking in with your entire team and
Yeah,
making sure nothing's on fire and everyone's doing well.
exactly,
And
exactly.
all the,
Yeah, I like to say like it's always good useful to have one or two fires,
yeah,
because it's, like you need to stay warm, like you need to keep your muscles, in trim,
have
but you
to keep
shouldn't
things
have
exciting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we like to live on the edge. Well, no, we don't. But like there always is, like, when you meet like probably 10, 12 people on a Monday, or you meet 10, 12 people on a Wednesday or Thursday, and like, very often like 8 to 10 of them are like very satisfied. Everything's
Mm,
going well. You're just checking in. There's always one or two people are having the worst week ever, and like things are just an absolute disaster.
yeah.
And you're there to really, okay, first of all, be that kind of shoulder, says, here, listen, things will be okay. They're always okay. And then you get to the problem, you try and solve what it is, or you help them solve what it is, or
Mm,
rationalize it, or whatever it is that needs to happen. Like, and like the idea is, we get to Friday evening, and nobody's too stressed. Like, I like to think of myself as being atypical, I suppose, in terms of CTOs. The CTOs that I've encountered, I always see myself a little bit different from them, and I think that's due to my background a little bit in
mm,
terms of how I came up through the industry. I started off in QA, and
mm,
I worked in QA for a long time, honestly. I was away traveling for a couple of years around seeing the world, different jobs here and there. Australia, last place I was living in was in Montreal. And I decided to move home around 10 years ago, and I happened to get a job in Smartbox then, just as a QA engineer. So it was really the first year that I had there, just working as a tester. I was working with like genuinely like some of the best developers I've ever encountered in my career, and like I'm lucky and I'm very fortunate to say that these guys are still in Smartbox, and I feel that we kind of grew up together.
beautiful.
And our kind of mode of working back then, which was like highly collaborative, highly built on trust and enabling people to be the best that they can be.
Mm,
Like really just changed it for me. Like I was somebody who was quite apathetic, I would say, from where how I felt about the industry and how I felt about me in the industry, to like just being highly energized and like just seeing, wow, this is how awesome work can be when you create the right conditions. You kind of enable the right people to you know just do their stuff, just to,
yeah.
to to be as good as they can be, so for me, like, that was such a strong lesson for me, and it's something that I've taken with me to this day. Like, and again, it's about surrounding yourself with like just really, really the best people you can,
Yeah.
and then just lifting obstacles away from them as much as you can as well. Like, I always like to like it's going to sound silly, but I do regard myself as quite humble. I do like to like I'm most comfortable when I'm probably the dumbest person in the room. So like if I get smart people around, and I'm not afraid to ask dumb questions. I always try and keep I always think about the little granny in the south of France, like the user, a typical user who's on our website, and just trying to simplify things for that person, for that use case. I
Mm,
think it's a kind of like it's a potent way for us to kind of think about our work, and to kind of ground ourselves on our work as well, and really kind of put ourselves into a position where we are, delivering solutions for that person, as much as possible. And like, honestly, as a CTO, like, again, coming up through that quality route, which is quite unusual. I haven't met too many others who have come up through that way. Like, I
mm,
am informed by that a lot, and like I do ensure that I put emphasis on stuff like the quality of the customer experience, the quality of our systems, and ensuring that, like, we because like a lot of other companies, like technology is a department within Smartbox. It's not the product, if that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So like we're like a supporting kind of layer underneath multiple different kind of business units.
Yeah. So making sure that no matter how far, and I guess from 10 years ago, things have
Mm,
probably definitely changed a lot. And no matter how technologically advanced things may get in Smartbox or in the roles that you're working with and the people that you're bringing in, at the heart of everything, you are always thinking of that granny in France and making sure
Exactly.
that everything is super understandable for everyone, and that across all areas, I'd say all the departments that you mentioned there that you work with too. So
Yeah.
that's really lovely to hear, because I guess one thing that we have been talking about a lot in this series is moving away from that idea and that concept that the chief technology officer is purely just technical. And they and this was something that we had kind of come through when we wanted to launch this series, was conversations within teams asking them, what comes to your mind when you think of a chief technology officer? And they said, the person that knows everything, the Yoda of any group. And they're the person that will, take things to the next level, but sometimes it's hard to understand what that next
Mm.
level is. Whereas it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying there.
Yeah, and like
Mm.
ultimately, then it's up to me to make a decision in terms of how informed I am on it. And just to your kind of, yeah, to your other point where you have someone who is a guru, and I have seen this in other places as well. Like, does that scale? Does it scale really? Like, if that person doesn't make it into work for whatever reason, then like how do you function, right? So like
Yeah.
it's important to have I suppose a mode of working which is sustainable, and
Yeah.
like for me, having single points of failure in there or potential single points of failure, like I would know, like if I was a CEO in my place and I relied on Phil to answer every question, then that's not a good mode. That's not a good place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And looking at that now, so in terms of, you starting in QA and moving into
Mm.
CTO, even looking at yourself or maybe some of your peers, what have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen to the CTO role over the last few years?
Looking at peers and looking at different kind of other like CTOs that I've worked with, even in Smartbox, there's such difference between them. Like you
Mm.
see um such strengths and I wouldn't say weaknesses, but like there's definitely places where certain people are super strong. Like the first CTO we had, great guy, like really like someone who believed in me a lot and someone who I have to thank a lot for. And every time I see him, I always say thank you to him because
Mhm.
he did see potential in me. Like even though I wasn't necessarily the typical profile that you would see, but like he was someone who's very technical. Someone
Mm.
who like really understood problems and like he would run through a brick wall and whoever was standing between him and the brick wall, God help them. But like he was really really that kind of a mode. Um, he was replaced by a guy who, like, when he left, we had a guy who was like much more people oriented.
Mm.
Someone who was like really about getting the right people together and like committing to decisions that you make and making sure that like we're all kind of pushing into one direction. If something goes wrong, what you learn from it, and then
Mm.
you make sure the next time around that you that you do it better. And then the third fella who I've taken over from, he's very much about processes. And he's about if you have robust processes, if you have and he's very much about agility as well, like
Mm.
and empowering people to be able to make decisions and to have a like a robust, simple process that people can fall back on,
Mm.
and that's predictable but also delivers. Then you're able to build trust, and the business trusts you as a result of that. So for me, seeing three of those like really really distinct characters and me trying to magpie as much as possible from those people, as well as seeing other people as well in the industry. For me, like there's definitely an evolution in that regard.
Yeah.
But that said, it's a moving target. Like no matter like the week you think you have it solved, you think you have it sussed. Like this role will kick you in the ass like before you're able to sit down. Like honestly, so yeah, it's not it's a moving feast, and it is good. Like it's like you're there on a Saturday or like on a Friday evening, like I sit down with my wife and the dog, and like you're just like you've been blasted with like a wind machine for a week, like So it's yeah, but it's great. I love it. I really do love it.
Oh, well, talking about what you love and moving into a layer of the onion, this is where we chop into it a little bit, our eyes start to water, and I'll ask you, what are some of the things that are making you cry in the tech world? Any big problems or practices that frustrate you
Oh,
to see?
oh, yeah. I was wondering how long I could last in this conversation without saying AI.
This is a
But
thing for
here,
everybody. Every guest we have, they're like, I
yeah,
didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it. But AI.
yeah. And it is like I was listening to your first guest, and
Mm,
like an incredibly accomplished person, and like you can see the energy and like the point of view that they have on
mm,
AI, and how it is such a tsunami, like it is such a wave of change that is coming, you know. I think what kind of frustrates me at the moment is there's a lot of nonsense out there at the moment. There's a lot of hype. My inbox, if I look at it, just glancing it over to my side, like 80% of it is people selling AI this, AI that, AI
yeah.
whatever, like, you know. So to sift through all of that, it's tricky to just see where the real value is, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just where it becomes a pain is my peers get the same emails, right?
Yeah.
And other people in the business, and they're like going, right, let's sign up for this, let's sign up for that. And like a lot of what they're signing up for is just something that sits on top of ChatGPT or one of these other LLMs, you know. And it's not a complex thing that they do, but they promise the world, and you end up with, especially as like when you're leading the technology department in a company like Smartbox, and you're responsible for not just the systems, but also like data integrity and you know, like people's kind of personal data and all that kind of stuff.
Mm,
You need to be very, very careful about what vendors and what tools and licenses that you um, that people sign the company up for, because you know, are we acting in the best interest of our customers? So that
mm,
is something which like we have been very strict on in terms of managing things, and we need to persist to be strict on these things as well, because ultimately we need to protect the customer. We need to provide products which, you know, solve problems for them, really, you know,
mm,
that really kind of provide a solution for something which they need in their day-to-day lives, you know. And we need to make sure that we are super protective of that, because for me, just at the moment, there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of bluff. There's a lot of yeah, crap, which we need to
yeah.
be we need
Straight
to be
up crap.
cognizant of. Straight up, just pure smoke sellers, snake oil, all that good stuff. Yeah,
And I guess in a sense, how does that fare for, the big shiny things and wanting to be a product of your time and everything like that? How does that go in terms of separating the nonsense from the stuff that actually may work well? Is that
yeah.
coming together as a team and really interrogating these sales emails, or is it
Mm.
kind of following trends yourselves?
Yeah, it's more the latter, and
Mm,
it's definitely the mode which I will be more comfortable in. Like as I
yeah,
said, and I alluded to earlier on, like the most important part of my job is recruitment.
yeah.
It's about getting good people into the organization, good people who are smart and hungry, you know, and impatient, you know, so they really have that kind of natural inbuilt tenacity to kind of develop stuff, you know.
Mm.
I always find as well that, in my experience anyway, you're much better off to build than buy.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
if you can, because you know, I say every company is the same, but Smartbox has a very specific kind of business model, right? And to pull something off the shelf and for it to work exactly as you need it to work is very unlikely for that to happen. So you need to
yes.
customize it, and then it becomes difficult to support, and it becomes expensive. And does that scale? No, it doesn't, right?
Mm,
While if you're able to eke out enough bandwidth from your own kind of roadmap and your own kind of resources to build something and use something like an LLM, because for me that is, it's like going to a restaurant, right? You always want to go to a restaurant where they make stuff better than you can make it. Okay, and that's the value of it. It's not just something that's convenient. If it's convenient, it's probably not good for you, right? But if you go to like your like a Michelin star restaurant, these guys are putting stuff in front of you which you will never ever be able to do, right? So
mm,
that's what I'd like to go to the market and do that. So for me is using an LLM like using something like a ChatGPT or one of the others.
Mm.
And like, okay, let's use that because that's expertise that we cannot build, right? But
Yeah.
everything else that we can put on top of it, we can build that stuff. If it's queuing systems, if it's whatever it is, like the learning models, etc., or the learning mechanism which you hook into the model, then that is stuff that we can build, and we can, if given the bandwidth, we can deliver something. And as I said, like we've gone through big projects before in the last couple of years, really successful projects as well. And when we just go and build it, rather than when we go and try and customize something, I would say if it's a football match, it's like 10-0 for building your own stuff. In terms of how good it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we had a guest speak on that as well, and it was like his advice to his future self was like, when you make that decision to buy in something and you realize early on that this is failing, just jump off, because he was like, I had to learn
Yeah.
the hard way in terms of going towards something shiny and new and, listening to all the promises and then investing and quickly realizing you've made a huge mistake. So that's great to
Yeah,
hear as well.
yeah. And
Uh,
another real problem as well, and especially with AI, and like there's a lot of like these kind of companies which will, they'll automate certain business processes, or they'll automate this, and you don't need like more staff to do, etc. So we'll
mm,
reduce your operating costs, all this kind of stuff, right?
mm,
And like this presents like a real business continuity issue, right?
mm.
Like if you put something in there and it fails, right? Or let's say the company fails, or the company goes elsewhere, or they decide, you know what, we want to charge you 10 times the price for that,
Yeah.
then you've got a real problem in terms of how do you execute your business process, because you've put something in the middle which you cannot replace. The people are no
Yes.
longer there. So you need to be very, very careful. Like when you are developing these capabilities, you need to make sure that it's something that scales. Yeah, and
Mhm.
something which is robust as well, because like I couldn't in good conscience like take something into like one of our different kind of business processes with a company that isn't absolutely rubber stamped, like
Yeah.
absolutely gold standard, because it will impact our business continuity, and again that'll impact everybody, like all our users.
Yeah, like a domino effect of terribleness that could happen. To level things
Yeah,
out, tears of
yeah.
joy. What emerging technologies, trends have excited you the most and are maybe helping to shape your sector?
We have done so much work. You kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier on when you said, geez, you must have seen a lot of change in Smartbox over 10 years. And like
Mm,
we have, like, when I started in Smartbox, like our first couple of weeks, first year, I would say, we would make a change to production every 2 months,
mm,
and it would fail 60% of the time. Okay. So we would make a change to production, a successful change, about once every 4 to 5 months. Okay. And that was an all night. You stayed up all night, you worked through the night the next day, and you spent a couple of weeks having people screaming at you. And it was an absolute nightmare, right? Over the years, like recognizing that that is not sustainable, and like Smartbox itself has grown nicely as a company over that time, especially in the pre-COVID years. We did a lot of acquisitions, so we kind of built organically, and we also built through acquisition. We also grew through acquisition as well. So it was necessary for us to undergo like a digital transformation, and to actually build some proper capabilities and
mm,
engineering capabilities to support that kind of a business transformation, that digital transformation. So like today we have such a robust, like I'm sure you know CI/CD. I'm sure you've heard of technologies such as Kubernetes,
mm.
and obviously all the different kind of the cloud platforms as well. Like we're a one-click to release company now, so we can release like multiple times per day, like multiple times per minute if we need to. Yeah.
Mm.
So the change from that to those overnight kind of releases has been like just astonishing, right? In terms of how we've been able to kind of evolve and to mature our technical capabilities to put us into a much more a robust place. Like we can go to market like in days when before it
Quickly,
was
yeah.
months. Yeah, like been able to get features in front of customers much more efficiently than we used to before. But
Yeah.
also from an operational point of view as well, like using platforms or using technologies such as Kubernetes means that we are just so much more robust than before.
Yeah.
We can deploy containers wherever. Like, it's super portable technology. We can deploy it into our data center. We can deploy it locally. We can deploy it into cloud. And our customers don't know any different. It enables us to be super elastic in terms of our performance as well. Like, Christmas is a massively important time for us. When
Yes.
people are buying gifts for each other, and we are a gifting company, so ensuring that we have like a robust, scalable a system, which, like, I think last Christmas was 99.9999 uptime. Like, that was just an absolute dream, like 4 or 5 years ago. So the fact that we're able to do that now has really been a game changer for us. Yeah.
Wow. And people can actually get to sleep now too, which
Yes.
is brilliant.
Yes, it's like, and it's like we've had new people come into the organization, like, obviously, like every company does, and
Mm.
like at senior level, like we've had a refresh at our executive level there last year, and like, just even trying to explain to them what the bad old days were like. Like, you'd love like for them to live through just one night of that, right? Just
You
so
don't
they
know
can
what
see
we've
how good
seen.
things are. Yeah, like, it's like, you could eat your dinner off the streets. It's that clean at the moment. Yeah, so you're always kind of like that kind of leads it into another kind of frustrating place where you're always trying to justify spending time, like, tackling technical debt, and looking at seeing where the next kind of evolution is, and making
Yeah.
sure that we're in a place to do that. And like, we're really in a mode of kind of really optimizing what we have. There's no getting around the fact that the cost of doing business has gone extortionate over the last couple of years due
Mm.
to multiple kind of global macroeconomic kind of issues, right?
Mm.
Smartbox has been impacted by that as much as anything else. Like, licenses have gone up, the
Mm.
costs of goods and services has gone up as well. Like, so we have had to, like, put an emphasis on making ourselves as lean as possible, and to kind of have that kind of leanness and that fitness of our technology, so that we can scale, and we can
Yeah.
scale in a much more sustainable way.
Yeah. So what you're talking on there as well, I guess the big thing there is giving people a lot more time as well to do what they do and do it really well. And that makes me wonder, because you've been at the forefront of so many incredibly exciting innovations that have happened within Smartbox, what would be your keys to successfully delivering strategically important projects safely, as we mentioned earlier? If you wouldn't mind, and maybe we could talk about working with teams on those big projects too.
Yeah, yeah. That's it's a big question. I can say we've done both. We've delivered big changes unsafely, I would say, at points in our past. But like, our most recent big change was we basically rebuilt our entire e-commerce platform, and we were on a Magento 1
Mm.
platform, which was like a monolithic and highly customized, completely unscalable. It cost us an absolute fortune to scale it. In terms of just running it, and changing it was an absolute nightmare. Gun was put up against our forehead when Adobe stopped supporting Magento 1 and it was going end of life. So we have been, like, saying, listen, this is a project we need to tackle at some point. But
Mm.
at that point, I suppose 2.5 years ago, I was able to go to the ELT at that point and say, hey, guys, no, we need to do this. There's no getting around it. We have to do this. Yeah. And it's 18 months of an effort to do this. Yeah. Now, getting sponsorship was tricky, but we managed to do it. Like, I think definitely having that gun helped. Like, it was a really good ransom note, which we were able to actually get the ransom paid, and which effectively was been able to get about 30 to 40 resources to work on this massive project for us. Like, we have 16, 17 different websites, different countries that we operate in. It's not a simple or facile thing to do. Like, we have a massive catalog with huge amount of experiences which are associated with each of our different kind of products. And so kind of building a platform that supported all of that was huge, right? Now, in terms of what we did and what made it successful, like again, and I'm like going back to that initial project where I was working with those same people. Like we get these guys into a room and we spend some proper time planning out what it is that we need to do, right? And
Mm.
we do the preparation of it, right? Now what's critical, absolutely critical in any kind of big project that you have, is for it to be the number one priority. Yeah, you
Mm.
need to make sure that you enable your guys to put focus on this piece of work and that they don't have distractions from anything else. Like it literally needs to be the buildings on fire to get them away from it. Okay, and we need to, and like it is like it, and like this is something which it's easy to say, and it's very difficult to maintain it because
Yeah.
especially over the course of from about 6 months out, I would say like we had a little bit of a wobble in terms of confidence from let's say the fellow members of the executive. They were like going, well, listen, could we not be doing this? Can you do that? You're not going to deliver it on time.
Mm.
You've had delays, you've had this, you've had whatever, like the typical stuff that happens within an organization. Now, our action at that point was to double down on it, was to
Mm.
say, guys, no, listen, we need to consolidate on this. We need to make sure that we maintain the focus and we describe exactly what it is that we need to do. And that
Mm.
is so important, is before you actually start building the stuff, is making sure that absolutely everybody is on the same page. Now, this is actually a neat kind of segue to talk about Smart OC as well, and Smart OC being one of our key partners in delivering this. And I've said
Mm.
this to,
Sponsored.
again, to, yes,
You
and I'm
can.
not saying it, yeah,
I
it
swear,
wasn't
I
even,
didn't put
yeah,
any money towards this
no, but
sponsorship.
I'll tell you what was critical in delivering that was we did take a trip over to Vietnam,
Yeah.
and we sat down with the guys and we because like a good proportion of our team was based in Hanoi at that point in time,
Mm.
and we spoke about the importance of this project and how we needed like a full commitment from the team in order to deliver stuff, right? And like what I love about I suppose our relationship with Smart OC is that we've been working with them for 10 years now at this stage, and pretty much they started just after I started, so I feel like we're twins almost in the
Growing up
Smartbox
together.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like we also, like a lot of the developers we started on day one are still with us. So
Yeah.
like we really see that like the key to having like a really good relationship there is to see them the same as ourselves, and to have
Mm.
that trust and to really demand. And I remember my last visit to Hanoi, I said to the guys is the one thing I need from you guys is honesty, right? And I need you guys to be honest. If something is not working or you think something is not going to work, you need to let me know so we can make adjustments. The
Mm.
last thing I want is someone at the end when things have fallen apart telling me, oh, we should have done this and we should have done that. Like for me, that's very frustrating when that happens. It's like,
Mm.
let's think about it at the critical times. So we spent that trip. There was another trip over where we sent over some developers, and like genuinely those guys, the whole team was just focused in a room and just working through it. And like they had the motivation, they had the clear purpose, and they were left alone to deliver it. And
Mm.
like delighted to say that they not only delivered it on time, they also delivered it absolutely squeaky clean. With any of these kind of transformation or these project deliveries, you would put aside at least 2 weeks, if not a month, of what we call intensive care.
Mm.
So you have people working around the hours, monitoring for issues coming in from our customer service, monitoring for issues that we're finding ourselves on the website, and we didn't find one Sev 1 or Sev 2 issue. After that, the whole thing was like what we had to fix, very very trivial stuff that you would probably find on a normal kind of day of the week. So yeah, enabling ourselves to have that time to focus and to focus on the quality, making sure that the preparation was good. And even though it might look like a lack of progress from outside, it meant that when we hit the go button,
Yeah.
it flew out the door. Yeah, and it flew out the door with outstanding quality as well.
So this was pretty much taking everything that you had and moving it all. And I'm just trying to make sure I have this right. Pretty much hitting reset on everything that all your digital spaces, your customer facing digital spaces in an
Almost,
18-month period,
yeah,
um, with teams across the world as well. So multiple different teams actioning things in multiple different areas all at once and trying to maybe blanket everything safely across everyone within 18 months. And you got to the end with no bugs, well, very few bugs and everything
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah. Pretty
to
much. Pretty much. Yeah.
summarizing those kind of keys was honesty and being straight up from the beginning.
Mm.
What else would you say? The clear communication,
Focus.
focus, not allowing anything
Focus.
else in to anybody's
Not
week.
allowing anything else in. You need to keep people focused. If you have
Yeah.
if you have people distracted,
Mm,
that's a killer for productivity. That's a killer for stuff like if you're tracking productivity like we do with cycle time, and
mm,
that's an absolute killer. You need to have a very clear point of commitment that once you
mm.
start something, you don't pick up something else until you stop that. Yeah. And then the other thing as well is, and it kind of goes without saying, but it's like really empowering people to make decisions.
Yeah.
If you can shorten that kind of decision making chain, if you can
Mm.
shorten that as much as possible, decisions get made and you end up getting to a good place much, much sooner. Yeah.
And for a CTO listening to this who, may find themselves in a situation where they're going through that complete digital transformation of a business, what would your advice be to somebody who may be facing this? And even like to quote our first guest, a tsunami of change that is coming your way. What would be
Mm.
a piece of advice that you may give to somebody listening in?
God, it's tough. It is tough, right? And I'm sure everybody is the same. The roadmap is way bigger than the amount of time that any of us have left.
Mm,
So you can't work on everything, right? You need to ensure that you are able to make good decisions in terms of where you choose to spend your time. Right.
yeah.
And for me, you need to develop a value-based decision framework, right? That enables you to say why this piece of work is more important than this other piece of work and why we
Mm,
need to deliver it. Yeah. Um, that for me is the key thing because you need to get buy-in from your stakeholders. You need to make sure that you have a full buy-in and everybody is behind that. Yeah.
mm,
Once you have the buy-in, then it's about preparation, making sure you have preparation, and don't underestimate how much effort it takes to prepare something well and to have something well refined. Because at the end of the day, the people at the pointy end of your at your process are going to be your developers and your testers, right? So you want to make sure that you are giving them something that's highly deliverable, something that's simple as it can be, but like it's something that they don't need to come back with loads of questions. They understand it and they're able to deliver it, right? So kind of tightening up those feedback loops as much as possible enables you to really deliver a successful story at the end, because the temptation always is to get to development as quickly as possible. If you do that with a good preparation, yeah,
you're gonna find yourself back at the start again.
you're gonna find yourself back at the start again, and you might even find your project getting ditched because you lose credibility when that stuff happens as well. So yeah,
That's really well said. Thank you for that. Okay, so coming to the last couple of questions that I have for you now, what
cool.
would you say this final layer, getting to your core, what would you say is the core source code of you as a leader in your space?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, like can I go really 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 far back? Is that okay?
Absolutely, go as far back as you like.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to playing under 14 Gaelic football in County Cavan, where I'm from. Okay, uh,
we need to explain this to our
yeah,
international audience as well.
yeah. So how do we sum this up? So in Ireland, in rural Ireland, we play sports. If you're in America, it's just like American football. If you're in England, it's just like soccer for argument's sake. Anyway, but there was two managers that we had. I was about 14 for the first guy, and I'd say I was about 16 or 17 for the second guy. And the first guy was, and like honestly, they're probably the two most influential people in terms of my management style, right, and in terms of how I work. And it's funny because I actually think about this a lot, right? And
This
the
is
first
your Roman
guy,
Empire.
yeah, the first, yeah, exactly. The first guy just would put a fire inside of you, right? He would just absolutely make you run through the wall, like Band of Brothers style. He would have you just running through walls, Like you would feel like you would die on the pitch for anybody else. Now he didn't talk tactics. He didn't talk, like too much in that regard. Like he wasn't getting into details, but you would just die for this guy, right? He would absolutely just like fill you with such inspiration. Yeah. And he did that through connecting with you, right? Understanding you, because any other kind of walk of life in a football team, like everybody has different interests, everybody has different, different things spark them, right? And he took time to learn and understand each of the different people. He was able to talk as a group. He's able to talk to individuals, but you just wanted to make that man happy, And like for me, I think, right, how can you engender that kind of feeling in people that you work with, and I think it is important for me to build personal connections with people and to really understand where people are coming from, and
Yeah.
like I've been very fortunate to have traveled a lot. And I've met people from all over the world, and like honestly, the best investment I ever made in myself was to do that, because it's just you're so open to other cultures, and you're so open, and I find myself naturally curious about people as well.
Mm.
Um, the second manager, he was the complete opposite. He didn't want anybody, like before a match. You're typically getting, come on, let's do this. Let's get these guys. He wanted nobody to raise their voice. Okay, in training, it was like everybody had a specific role. Everybody knew exactly what they were doing. There was a process for everything. There was a process, and when you went out, his understanding was, and his motive, I suppose, is once you get really good at your job, once you get really, really a master at your job, right, you just need to execute the small things, and the bigger picture looks after itself. Okay.
Oh,
So
wow.
really kind of get yourself into that mode of being able to do your thing really, really well. You work with the people really well. Make sure your handovers are clean. Make sure there's no kind of back and forth. And like, again, going out onto the football field, no shouting, because you're in control. You're calm. You just go out there and you just do what you do to the best of your ability, right? You know exactly what you need to do. And like we won multiple trophies under this guy, and it was just
Wow.
pure calm stuff. So like for me, kind of putting that into the more kind of professional and up to date context is, again, like making sure that we invest in people in terms of their training, making sure, because the fire only lasts so long, right? You can't
Yeah.
be fired up on a Monday morning and a Tuesday morning and a Wednesday morning. No, you need to know that, okay, I'm actually getting honed at my skills here. I'm actually getting really, really good at delivering what I need to do, right? I'm reflecting on the measurements of success here. I've got good objectives. I understand what success looks like for me,
Mm.
and what are the drivers of each one of those different things. And once I understand the drivers, then I'm able to identify what actions I can take to get even better again. And you become a calmer, more methodical, and like a really kind of less stressed but more productive kind of person once you kind of adopt this kind of mode.
So, what was it that those two people in your life helped you action today that's been really successful for you?
And it's one thing we've done in Smartbox is I've set an objective for my teams, which is specifically cycle time, right? And cycle time being the measurement of once a developer starts working on something to when it's actually working in production. Okay,
Mm.
as simple as that. How long it takes us to do one to the other, right? And I give that to my guys, and everybody in the team has this as an objective. Okay, what this does is it forces them to think, okay, what actually constitutes my cycle time? What are the activities which happen? What is the process which needs to execute? And I'm looking at my process and I'm going, okay, do I need to do that? Can I pull this down? Because I
Mm.
want to improve the cycle time. I want to improve this, right? Now quality is in there as well, so we need to make sure that they don't just take shortcuts, right? But like, giving them that kind of motivation, giving them like a really clear target in terms of what they deliver, has enabled us to like reduce our cycle time by 40% over the last 2 years. Okay, so like we are getting to market 40% sooner than we were 2 years ago.
And is
Um,
that just from observing it and watching it and just learning from each cycle length that you've put in front of them?
so what we ask the guys, and like we have a meeting every second week,
Yeah.
our SDMs will come with hypotheses. where they will look at, okay, and like we built dashboards which measure all this stuff. We
Yeah.
can see how much time different tasks, different tickets spend at different kind of statuses, and we can see where the teams which have the higher technical capabilities have the much better cycle times. So we can see that
Ooh.
there's a direct correlation between investing in your tech and actually being much more kind of productive from a business point of view.
Wow.
So yeah, so we can see those patterns, and that's amazing because that shows that we can make it work in a Smartbox context.
Yeah.
But we can also scale it across our various different teams as well. So we have examples by which other teams can improve. And when you look at it at the kind of micro level, so at a Jira board level, we have one team as an example, like they've dropped their cycle time from over 40 days down to 2 or 3 days. Right, so you can imagine how more productive that team is, and how and that extra time gives you time to tackle more technical debt or like to tackle everything. So like it just helps kind of support and sustain itself going forward, right? So
Yeah.
setting something as simple as a metric as that, it kind of forces us to really understand what contributes to that, and once you understand what the different kind of drivers of it are, then the actions to correct it become much simpler, right? And that gives you a kind of a framework of breaking down a given problem and turn it into like a really kind of action oriented kind of set of
Mm.
actions, which really are hugely beneficial for us as an organization. And I'm sure it is something which scales. It's something that can
Yeah.
be adapted to any, because it's so generic,
Anyway, I want that in my life.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It is good. And like what's great is as well, and I suppose the important thing, and it kind of goes back to that second manager I was talking about.
Mm.
Like we regularly check the mood of our teams, right?
Mm.
So we says, how happy are you? Like literally just every second week, are 1 to 10. So like our happiness levels of the teams that have improved their efficiency by like how many fold, like crazy amount. They're less stressed than they were before. They're not having to run through brick walls. They're not having to have that huge fire in them, right? Now it's great to have the
Yeah.
fire every now and again when you need it, but like that much more kind of sustainable way of working is like by having kind of like that time to be thoughtful, and to kind of interrogate and analyze where you actually spend your time enables us to really kind of in a very stress-free manner improve our efficiency, so
Yeah, and make sure people are really happy in what they do as well and make life easier. And as we touched on earlier, not have people staying up all night and
mm,
bringing people into a workplace where you're like, yeah, you wouldn't believe what we went through back in the day,
yeah,
but you're good now.
yeah,
You're good now. Um, to wrap things up, you went right back there. So now I want you to
yeah,
go right
further back.
ahead. No, 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 we're not. Well, I was 2 years old. No, we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
go.
yeah,
We're gonna
cool.
go into the future. Right into
Okay.
the future. And I'd love to ask you a piece of advice that you'd like to give to your future self.
Wow. God, start thinking about this stuff earlier, I guess. I know it's tricky. Like, I think a piece of advice I was given, and I think it's really, really good for me personally, is always be hungry and impatient.
Those
Yeah,
are two scary things in normal day to day
yeah.
life.
Be hungry, be impatient, because I think that drives you, and it kind of it gives you ambition. So the hunger
Mm.
kind of gives you ambition, and the impatience means, like it gives you urgency,
Yeah.
and it enables you to think, okay, you only have a limited amount of time here. So like I would have been a pretty laid back, complacent in my 20s, yeah, like it's not even that I would change much, honestly. Like I'm happy
Mm.
with how things have gone, because like let's say I was highly driven and I was like massively career motivated in my 20s, then I probably wouldn't have taken the opportunity to go and take 2 years out traveling, and go to
Yeah.
places like India, Indonesia, South America, Australia, and all these amazing, incredible places, which has like really given me such amazing life lessons, and like honestly it's really set me up for like a really really great career, like
Mm.
and that is something I would advise anybody to do. Like if
Yeah.
you have the means and are fortunate enough to be able to do something like that, then 100% I would do that. The more kind of context you can give yourself, and when it comes down to getting serious about your career, will only put you into a much better place. Like you do see some kind of younger people who haven't done that, and or even people the same age who haven't done that, and you can see that they're kind of lacking a little bit, in terms of that kind of more kind of holistic experience of life. So yeah, for me, like I would say that I think that advice is good. Like, be
Yeah.
hungry, be impatient. It's really a game at the end of the day. It really is a game. And once you kind of look at it as a game, as levels that you want to progress and you want to achieve, and you need to add certain levels of skills in order to be able to compete.
Power ups.
Then power ups, exactly. Get your power ups, and don't just Mario Kart, just send them as soon as you get them. Like, keep them for when you need them. Those banana skins are amazing.
Those banana
But yeah,
skins. Get
oh
those
yeah,
banana skins. That's all you need to
yeah.
do in life.
It's a real negative one because you're screwing up the person right behind you, aren't you? Yeah. So I much prefer to, yeah. Let's get the ones that accelerate us. But yeah, no. For me, I think definitely travel loads. I think it gives you such a wonderful perspective, and it just enables you to build connections with people. Because ultimately, like, given that I'm not like a technocrat, I'm not someone who's a pure technical kind of person. Like, and I do see the power in people. Like, keep equipping myself with those kind of yeah, the people skills,
Yes.
has really served me well, I think, in terms of my career. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Phil. And it was wonderful to have you. I think that's a great way to end things here. Thank you so much
Lovely.
for joining us on Cut the Onion.
Thank you.
And for those listening that didn't get to see the dog, we're very sorry. And Albie didn't have much to say in the end, but his energy was here for the entire episode, which was brilliant.